This is a monstrosity that is one of the most shameful acts I've ever seen in this body. The appropriations process has failed the American public, and there's no greater example of the nail in the coffin of the greatest failure of a one-party rule of the House, the Senate, and the presidency of this bill here. You controlled it all. Mr. Speaker, I just heard him brag about how great the Rules Committee is. They're so great because they care about the people. They care so much about the people, they never did their work. The Democrats and Biden's open border policy has caused the worst border crisis in American history. You could try to ignore it, but in 11 more days, since you won't show up for work here, you no longer will have that opportunity. And we're going to take our work to the border. We're going to have our hearings on the border. All you'll have to do is open your eyes, and you'll see what you created. And you'll see the disaster that has become of your legacy. And oh, probably the secret of all the Democrats' power before they were fired was the wokeism. Buried in the omnibus is even more money for wokeism in the government and the military. The woke left wants to further divide Americans against each other based upon race, sex, and background. They want to teach our kids that America is inherently bad and that you should distrust and hate your fellow Americans instead of strive to be a more perfect union. A new direction is coming. 11 days, Republicans will deliver. I request a no vote on the omnibus, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
After listening to that, it's clear he doesn't have the votes yet. I reserve my time.
This is Democrat Jim McGovern showing that it doesn't take a whole lot of words to very definitively shut Kevin McCarthy down. Here we see Kevin McCarthy descend into a living, breathing Fox News comment section, decrying wokeism and whipping up border hysteria and whining about the military. And the reason why is clear. As McGovern said, McCarthy is running for Speaker and he doesn't have the votes. He needs the support of 218 out of 222 members in his conference. And a number of Republicans have already come out against him for purportedly not being conservative enough. And so what's the result of that? This speech right here, where McCarthy performs his little circus act to try and curry favor with the other clowns. Tell you what, if nothing else, at least Kevin McCarthy is showing that it is possible to defy the laws of physics and stand upright with no spine. I mean, my God, the guy is whining about wokeness in the military? Is that what the GOP stands for now? That's the best they can do, trashing the American military? It really is amazing to watch a guy who very likely has the softest hands in Congress go off about how our military isn't tough enough. Not that he needs a reminder, but there is nothing stopping Kevin McCarthy or any of those other keyboard warriors on the right who complain about the military from going and enlisting themselves. Because nothing would toughen up our military quite like Kevin McCarthy on the front lines. Now, the point of all of this is to try and oppose the omnibus spending bill, the bill that funds the government through fiscal year 2023, along with allocating funding for Ukraine and overhauling the Electoral Count Act. Except Republicans don't feel that Democrats are entitled to pass anything, even though they have a majority in Congress, because even when Republicans don't have power, they somehow feel entitled to all of the power. And because, again, McCarthy is right now vying for the support of a group of Republicans who want this omnibus spending bill to get tanked, then McCarthy himself is pandering to that group by also trying to tank the omnibus spending bill. And if you needed any indication as to how McCarthy would lead, this should explain everything. The guy will cave to the farthest fringes of his base, who's currently got him on the shortest leash possible. McCarthy isn't a leader, he is a puppet, and there is no one in the GOP who doesn't know how to pull the strings to get what they want from him. And by the way, that wasn't lost on anyone. Here's Jim McGovern again lambasting the tactics employed by the lunatic fringe of the House GOP to threaten even their own party's colleagues in the Senate by promising to kill any legislation introduced by those Republicans who dare support the omnibus bill.
Games like the one House Republicans are playing by using this bill as a political wedge to threaten their counterparts in the Senate is equal parts dangerous and destructive. As Republican Senator Kevin Cramer said, and I quote, "The reality is this kind of chest thumping and immaturity doesn't instill confidence in their ability to lead," end quote. You know, you hear it all the time. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I'll be one of the first to say that this bill isn't perfect. It doesn't address everything I wanted, nor does it address everything in the way I wanted. But it's a good bill. It was put together through hours of hard-fought negotiations that involved members in both chambers from both sides of the aisle. It's not anyone's fault but their own that House Republicans chose to walk away from the negotiating table. At the end of the day, we are here to legislate, to get stuff done. We are here to help the American people, and that requires us to keep the lights on. The last time Republicans held the majority in the House, they left us in a prolonged government shutdown that cost our country and taxpayers over $11 billion. I can promise you the Democrats have no plan of letting that happen under our watch. We must pass this rule and the underlying bill and get it to the President's desk.
But here's the ultimate irony about the omnibus bill that both Kevin McCarthy and a number of Republicans are trying to sink. Within that bill are a number of priorities inserted by Republicans, a point made clear by McGovern.
For the record, the minority leader came to the floor and was criticizing community projects. Maybe he doesn't know this, but let me inform him that over 100 of his members on the Republican side requested and received community projects, all of which I'm happy to say were vetted. But maybe he is suggesting that they should all give them back. Because I know they're going to vote no on this bill and they go home and do a press release and do a press conference. But he ought to understand that, there's that saying, physician, heal thyself. I mean, the bottom line is over 100 members on that side requested community projects that were fully vetted. We're not questioning whether they're good or not. Their communities requested them. They get community support. But I mean, that's on your side.
And this is a recurring theme. Even going back to the infrastructure bill, Republicans will vote no and then immediately go back to their own districts and do all the ribbon cuttings and take all the applause for a bill that they voted against. These people are banking on their own supporters being too dumb to know that they tried to sink the very priorities that they then expected praise for passing. That's the point of exposing these people, that hopefully even those Republican voters will recognize that their leaders are doing their best to screw over the very people they're supposed to be helping, all in the name of allegiance to party over country. Now, since this desperate Hail Mary by Kevin McCarthy, the House did pass the omnibus bill by a vote of 225 to 201, with a number of Republicans in the House defecting just like their Senate colleagues did and voting in favor of this bill. And while this is the first loss by an impotent Kevin McCarthy, it's pretty clear that it won't be the last. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.